Lu Ying swung his arm and left with a cold expression after saying that. Su Yi stood awkwardly at the same spot and tried to ease the tension. Cough, Lu Ying's just like that, please don't mind him. Yi Wanwan didn't respond. After all, she was already prepared for this and expected that nobody would believe her. She also knew how others would view her once she gave warning about what was to come. Late at night at the bar on the top floor of the hotel, after being on the road for 2 days, the bodyguards were relaxing a little at the bar. A group of people was drinking and chatting there. Have you guys heard? That woman's like a maniac these past few days. She's been telling boss that there will be a robbery and danger ahead, urging boss to stop moving forward. She really thinks she's a grandmaster in fortune-telling, huh? Nonsense. That phony simply guessed what happened to the captain by chance, right? She even predicted Song Jing would have a romantic calamity, but 2 days have gone by and isn't Song Jing still fine? Song Jing sneered. Captain said she's a femme fatale. He's completely right. A group of them were talking when suddenly, a blonde foreigner with blue eyes walked towards them and headed directly to Song Jing. His eyes glistened as he stared at the knife on Song Jing's waist and said in fluent Mandarin, "Wow, if I'm not wrong, this is a famous knife from the Tang dynasty, right?" Seeing that this person knew his stuff, Song Jing was surprised. A foreigner like you actually knows about this? Ha, not only do I like China's history, I also like China's. Like China's what? Nothing, the man chuckled then said, I have many weapons from China at home. Do you want to follow me back and take a look? My place is nearby, really? Sure. The next morning. Yi Wanwan hadn't slept almost the whole night as she floated downstairs like a wandering spirit to have her breakfast. At the same time in the hotel's restaurant, a group of large men surrounded a skinny young man with a crew cut, patting his shoulder and coaxing him one after another. Don't be so gloomy, luckily we rushed over in time. That rapist didn't get what he wanted, right? Who'd have known that foreigner's gay? And even had a special liking towards Chinese men. He lured Song Jing into his house by bluffing about knives. The worst part was that he even used that kind of despicable drug. It was so close. If we got there a second later, we wouldn't have been able to save Song Jing's chrysanthemum flower. That foreigner already had his pants off. That plaything was so terrifying, if he really put that thing in. The veins on Song Jing's forehead protruded and his face turned darker as he listened. He howled in a fiery rage, "Shut up, all of you. I'll punch out the teeth of whoever brings up what happened last night. Yes, let's not talk about it anymore." Everyone hurriedly laughed it off. The moment Yi Wanwan stepped into the restaurant, she heard the detailed version of what happened and it was indeed hard to explain with a few words. Yi Wanwan sat at the table not far off from Song Jing's table then called the waiter over. "Waiter, please get me a pot of chrysanthemum tea." Hearing Yi Wanwan's voice, Song Jing, who had calmed down a bit, instantly tightened his own chrysanthemum flower as he turned his head stiffly towards Yi Wanwan. All the other bodyguards' actions were synchronized as they turned towards Yi Wanwan with even more astonishment compared to last time. At first, they hadn't put the two things together, but after they saw Yi Wanwan, they suddenly recalled a very strange incident. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. A few of the bodyguards huddled together and whispered, "Mother." I suddenly remembered that Miss Yi read Song Jing's fortune before. Didn't she say that he'd encounter a romantic calamity? It couldn't have been this, right? Fuck. It seems like it was. She had a really weird expression when she was saying that and she even said it was very dangerous and would bring great harm to Song Jing, cough cough. Indeed, it was extremely dangerous, it caused a lot of harm indeed, she wasn't wrong at all. She got it right again. Isn't this a little too creepy? This is simply unbelievable. If only Song Jing listened to Miss Ye's advice, couldn't he have avoided this calamity, huh? Give me a bowl of rock sugar chrysanthemum porridge, chrysanthemum, red date and wolfberry snow pear, and chrysanthemum shredded chicken. Each time Yi Wanwan read out an order, Song Jing's face darkened by one fold. He felt increasingly baffled in his heart. This woman, could it be that she really knows how to read a person's fortune? Otherwise, wouldn't all this be too much of a coincidence? Stop chatting and quickly go get ready, we'll be leaving soon. Today's the last day, so everyone has to be more careful. At this moment, Lu Ying walked over and looked in Yi Wanwan's direction. He also heard about what happened to Song Jing and it was indeed a little creepy, but how could that woman be able to predict things like that? It was just a case of a blind cat catching a dead rat, making her nonsense appear to make sense. Seeing that the captain arrived, everyone dispersed like birds. Yi Wanwan realized they had to set off soon, so she didn't have any other choice and decided to use the same tactic. Maybe she should continue injuring herself and use her beauty trap to delay the group. She was using all her mental energy to think of a plan and didn't notice that some time had gone by yet Su Yi hadn't informed her about taking off. What's going on? A suspicious look appeared on Yi Wanwan's face. With Si Yihan's punctuality, nothing like this should happen. In her previous life, she only knew that something bad would happen but she wasn't sure what time exactly. She also didn't have any information about other minute details, so she had no idea what happened that caused this delay. After waiting for some time, still nothing happened and Si Yihan didn't pick up her calls. Yi Wanwan gradually sensed that something wasn't right. Could it be that it's different from what I predicted? They weren't attacked on the road, but at the hotel instead? With that thought, Yi Wanwan stood up immediately and sprinted upstairs. There was nobody in the room where they had the meeting last night and Su Yi wasn't in the room either. Then she dashed to the suite she and Si Yihan shared. When she walked in, all she saw was a group of people gathered around the door, each of them with a solemn expression. What happened? Seeing all these people's expressions, Yi Wanwan's heart started pumping hard. One of the higher-ups said, "Just now when we were discussing business, boss suddenly got sick and fainted." What did you say? Yi Wanwan's face paled. At the same time, in the bedroom of the suite, a doctor from Jean Garden who came along on the trip checked Si Yihan's body with a grave expression. His condition isn't looking great. Ninth Master's illness came on too suddenly and the situation is dire. He was fine all along. How did this happen all of a sudden? Su Yi was extremely anxious. How was he fine all along? Ninth Master has health problems that simply can't be seen on the outside. I already warned all of you endless times, but Ninth Master and you guys didn't take my advice seriously. Ninth Master never showed it on the outside and didn't act any different from a normal person, but this time, his body's reached its limits and this is the result. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Then what should we do now? Is he in critical condition? Lu Ying panicked. We'll stabilize his condition with some medication first, but that's only a temporary fix. He must be sent to the hospital for a more thorough checkup. The doctor injected a dose of medication then quickly went to the medicine box to take some pills out and prepared to give them to Si Yihan. The more he panicked, the messier it got. He couldn't get Si Yihan to swallow the pills no matter what. Everyone in the room was in a panic. Just at that moment, there was a bang and the door was slammed open. A person rushed in. When Yi Wanwan entered the bedroom, all she saw was a pale Si Yihan lying on the bed. Su Yi, Lu Ying, and a few higher-ups were there and there were quite a number of doctors surrounding them as well. All those doctors tried giving Si Yihan the pills, but they couldn't get them in at all. Si Yihan's shirt even had a wet patch from all the attempts. A doctor was on edge as he said, "What should we do now?" Lu Ying was at the bedside distraught with anxiety when he heard the sound of the door banging open. He immediately yelled in fury, "Who is it? Damn it, don't come in and cause trouble." Yi Wanwan stared at the unconscious man lying on the bed. Her face was tainted with a layer of frost as she strode towards the bed. When Lu Ying saw that it was Yi Wanwan, his face turned gloomier and he said with an icy glare, "Please get out. Don't get in the way. Otherwise, I'll..." Yi Wanwan couldn't be bothered with him, her gaze was like a sharp knife stabbing Lu Ying who was blocking her way. "Get lost." After speaking, she simply passed Lu Ying and pushed away the doctor by the bed, then quickly grabbed the cup of water and pills from his hands. She popped the pills into her mouth, drank a gulp of water, then, right in front of everyone's eyes, she covered Si Yihan's lips with hers. Si Yihan's throat rolled twice. The pills were pressed into his mouth by her soft tongue as they were delivered smoothly inside. It took only 3 seconds. Everyone, Su Yi, the higher-ups, and all the doctors just stood there dumbstruck. Even the anger on Lu Ying's face stiffened. Before everyone could process what happened, Yi Wanwan had already taken clean clothes from the wardrobe and quickly unbuttoned Si Yihan's top, changing him out of the wet top. Seeing how Yi Wanwan had swiftly taken care of all those troubling tasks, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you so much, Miss Wanwan," Su Yi exclaimed gratefully. The doctors also thanked her, all thanks to Miss Wanwan. Lu Ying was silent. His expression was still slightly dissatisfied, but it warmed up a little. "How's Si Yihan's condition?" Yi Wanwan asked. Yi Wanwan finally knew why Si Yihan and the others suffered so much loss in her previous life. On one hand, it was because those people were brutal, and on the other, one of the most important reasons was definitely because Si Yihan suddenly fell so terribly ill. She was seriously worried about Si Yihan's health before, but in the end, what she worried about the most actually happened. Under such immense pressure from work and due to the long journey, the hidden ailments in Si Yihan's body were suddenly triggered and broke out without any warning. Before, Si Yihan's health wasn't in critical condition yet, he hadn't shown any weakness on the surface, so though many doctors warned that his body couldn't take it if he continued working like that, everyone's perception of Si Yihan was too perfect, like he was a god who couldn't be affected by anything. It was only now that everyone realized the doctor's warnings weren't just words to scare them. Their boss, their master, really reached his limit. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. In a split second, everyone was rooted to the ground in a daze like oars that lost their direction. "Mr. C must undergo a thorough body checkup and medical treatment as soon as possible. We can't delay it any further," the doctor said sternly. "Where's the nearest hospital?" Su Yi asked. Lu Ying gritted his teeth. "The medical facilities here are bad. How could we send our master to that kind of place? Our master's health is critical, let's head back." Hearing what Lu Ying said, everyone immediately turned to look at each other and fell silent. Tomorrow's the negotiation, yet he wants to return now. But if we don't head back, with our boss condition like that? Yi Wanwan glanced out the window at the sky and a dark cloud covered her heart. "Head back. I'm afraid they won't make it back." Just as everyone was intensely discussing a resolution, suddenly, one of the subordinates rushed in anxiously. "Captain. TR, trouble." "What trouble? What's the problem?" Lu Ying retorted in frustration. We're surrounded," his subordinate said in a panic. Lu Ying's face changed and grabbed his collar. "What did you say? What do you mean we're surrounded? I just sent some men to patrol the hotel's premises a minute ago. Even if we're surrounded, why wasn't there any warning?" His subordinate swallowed and trembled as he spoke. "We're surrounded by the entire town. The outskirts of this town were already completely blocked by a strong power. These people are very ferocious and are obviously coming for us." When Lu Ying heard that, his face turned livid. Su Yi's face changed as well. How could this happen? Which strong power? So daring. He knew we were from the Sea family, yet he dared to do something like this. His subordinate was in despair as he stammered, "I already checked, and if I didn't get it wrong, the other party is someone from Murderous Blood Gang." "Are you for real?" An immense fear surfaced on both Lu Ying and Su Yi's faces at the same time. Murderous Blood Gang was an organization that was started by a group of diabolical outlaws from various countries. They had a terrible reputation and neither the righteous nor evil wanted to provoke them. And they weren't affiliated or attached to any group or individual. The Sea family had never crossed paths with this group before. Why would they set themselves against them? What's their motive? Si Yihan was still in a coma right now, so they didn't have a leader. Everyone's minds were in a panic. Yi Wanwan remained by the bedside and stared blankly at the weak man lying on the bed. She was used to his arrogant and cold look, his immortal look and even his tyrannical and ruthless look, but this was actually the first time she'd ever seen him so frail. In her previous life, she only knew that Si Han's health was in bad shape, but she never witnessed him weak or in pain. A dead silence lingered in the air. Alas, it was Su-yi who broke the silence. Su-yi glanced at Yi Wanwan and said firmly, "We'll have Dark Team 1 send Miss Wanwan out." Lu Ying's face darkened. "Are you kidding me? There's a great enemy before us and you want to disperse the force of our elite group just to send her off first?" Su-yi said with a serious expression, "Lu Ying, you know very well that even if we had another 10 troops on Dark Team 1, we'd still be unable to fight with those people. Miss Wanwan has no relation to the Si family, they wouldn't care if she left. It's very easy to get her out, so let's use this chance before they capture us and take her away immediately. Otherwise, she'll never make it if we delay any longer." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Lu Ying still adamantly rejected Su Yi's suggestion. "I don't agree. Even if we only have a shred of hope left, we must still do our best to protect Master. This idea of yours would cause Master to be in greater danger. Just for the sake of this one woman." Su Yi's face was never more serious than this as he snapped, "Lu Ying, if we can't even protect Miss Wanwan, how are you going to answer the Master when he awakes?" Lu Ying was very clear on Si Han's attitude towards Yi Wanwan, so he couldn't refute Su Yi's words. However, he would never be willing to make such a great sacrifice for a worthless woman like Yi Wanwan. While Su Yi and Lu Ying argued, Yi Wanwan was silently observing Si Han and hadn't said a single word at all. "Miss Wanwan, please get ready, I'll get someone to take you out of country B immediately." Su Yi didn't delay any further and informed Yi Wanwan. In a moment, everyone's eyes were on that beautiful girl. At such a critical time, what would her choice be? If she was true to Si Han, she would never leave at this moment and would stay by his side to live or die with him, right? After a short period of silence, the girl lifted her head and replied expressionlessly, "All right, I got it." The second Yi Wanwan said that everyone furrowed their brows and looked at Yi Wanwan with slight contempt. The smirk on Lu Ying's face spread as he sneered, "Master, this is the woman whom you pampered so much." In a time of crisis, she didn't even hesitate and rushed to escape on her own. "If it was Miss Ruoshi, she would never leave my critically ill master alone." Su Yi sighed lightly and didn't comment. Yi Wanwan was a weak woman after all, so it was only natural that she wanted to escape to save her own life in this type of situation. Anyway, she didn't even have any feelings for Master. Under everyone's piercing gaze, Yi Wanwan took a long look at the man lying in bed, then she turned and left without looking back. Very soon, 2 completely masked men dressed in black came to Yi Wanwan's rescue. "Miss Yi, please get in the car quickly," the bodyguard dressed in black urged her. "Hold on," Yi Wanwan said suddenly. "Miss Yi, is something the matter?" one of them asked. "I have a black luggage in the room, I want to bring it with me," Yi Wanwan requested. "Miss Yi, this journey is very dangerous, we're better off not bringing too much luggage." The guy in black had his face covered so she couldn't see his expression. Since they were highly trained, she couldn't pick up on his emotions through his tone, but just by guessing, Yi Wanwan knew the rage in the hearts of these 2 bodyguards. They probably thought that the luggage contained some valuable items that she and Si Han accumulated. Yi Wanwan's expression remained unchanged as she insisted, "This luggage is very important. I must bring it with me, otherwise I won't leave." Hearing what Yi Wanwan said, the situation came to a deadlock. The 2 men looked at each other and finally, one of them brought that piece of luggage over. "Miss Yi, can we leave now?" Only then did Yi Wanwan nod. "Sure." A black car started its engine, blending in with all the guests leaving the hotel and quickly drove away. The entire Dark Team 1 followed behind and escorted them secretly. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After sending Yi Wanwan away, the remaining people swiftly reorganized themselves and brought Si Han away at the same time. Lu Ying's face was deathly still. What's the point of leaving the hotel? The entire town is in their hands now. Wherever we go, we'll still be turtles trapped in a jar. We can't get out and help can't get in. Even if there was help, it would be too late. Distant water can't put out a close fire. The entire town looked very calm on the surface, but the truth was that it was a huge death trap closing in on them gradually until all of them were murdered in their spots. And it had to be at a time when their master was critically ill. Their final pillar of support collapsed. Si Han's condition wasn't looking good. He had a fever again on the road. In all the missions he carried out before, Lu Ying had never felt so despondent before. In the car, Lu Ying's face was akin to a block of ice as he calmly checked and wiped his weapon repeatedly with a flickering cold light in his eyes. He was prepared for the worst. The others were the same as well. The entire convoy was shrouded in gloom. Su-yi looked at Si Han, who was in the back seat. He was extremely anxious as he asked in a low voice, Lu Ying, any response from Country B? Lu Ying, no. Asking for help from Country B was like a sinking rock in the big sea. Lu Ying looked at the tumbling dark clouds and said with a solemn expression, this was a completely planned, premeditated, and deliberate robbery and murder. Su-yi clenched his fists tightly. Who exactly are these people? Not only did they have such extensive power, but they could even recruit the murderous blood gang. Lu Ying gave a chuckle. Who cares? You think there aren't any people out there who want Master dead? This question was no longer important at this time. If it wasn't the murderous blood gang, they might have a shred of hope to live. But of all people, it had to be the murderous blood gang. Everyone knew that once the murderous blood gang was recruited, they'd never leave anyone alive. Initially, they thought the other party's target was their equipment, but now, they obviously wanted their lives. Su-yi didn't know what to say, so he didn't say a word even after some time. After a long while, he finally asked in a lethargic manner, how's the situation with Miss Wanwan? Su-yi scoffed and glanced at the video communicator. She should have fled far, far away by now. The other party's target was Si Han. Even if they noticed one or two little fish or prawns had fled, they wouldn't waste effort on chasing after them. When Su-yi heard that, he became silent once again. The town's bustling road flew past the car windows swiftly and the travelers got closer and closer to the border. Seeing the chance to survive get closer and closer, there still wasn't hope in anyone's hearts, only despair. Their enemies looked like they were enjoying the final struggles of the people on death row as they still hadn't showed up. Lu Ying couldn't tolerate this any further, so he turned to the window and yelled in the quiet air, come out. Is the murderous blood gang a bunch of wimps who only know how to hide, huh? Just at that moment, a red laser suddenly appeared on Lu Ying's head as if the Grim Reaper had descended. Su-yi's face changed drastically. He immediately pounced on Lu Ying and said, Lu Ying, be careful. Everyone, crouch down. The moment everyone crouched, the entire roof of Lu Ying's car was blown off. Everyone experienced a burning pain on their backs and their ears rung for a long time before they regained their hearing. When everyone returned to their senses, they realized that their enemies had already surrounded them like a pack of demons. Numerous black cars appeared all around them like a huge net. There was a black modified SUV in front of their convoy which was akin to an enormous beast that intercepted them, and a few people walked out of the SUV one after another. After finally catching a glimpse of their adversaries, everyone's hearts instantly sank to the bottom. This phrase means a slow remedy can't meet an urgent need like it. Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Headed by 3 people, the one in the middle looked Asian and was 1.9 tall. He wore a camouflage vest and his expression was extremely demonic. The muscles in his arms swelled and even his veins bulged out, but what caught everyone's attention was the iconic tattoo of a cross on his left arm. The man on the left made himself look like a clown with paint on his face. He had a treacherous smile and a small, skinny stature. He carried a heavy weapon on his shoulder and the blast just now was shot by him. The man on the right had blonde hair and blue eyes. His skin was very fair and he looked feminine and crafty. He wore a white suit and was smirking in Lu Ying's direction. After seeing them clearly, Lu Ying's body stiffened instantly like a bow stretched to its limits, his entire body went into a state of alertness. The one in the middle with the cross tattoo was the head of the murderous blood gang. His code name was K and no one knew his real name and origin. On K's left and right were his assistants, little clown Jason. The foxy blonde with no weapons in his hands was called Eugene. He seemed to be the weakest but in fact, he was the most formidable and savage one of the group. He didn't like using weapons because his greatest hobby was to disembowel his victims with his own hands. Countless experts died in his hands. Eugene and Jason were both felons from Country M, they had a stinking reputation. It's the murderous blood gang indeed. After seeing the three people, the last glimmer of hope in Su Yi's heart was shattered. Although there were only a handful of people who had seen the real faces of this legendary gang, one could easily guess their identities just by looking at their distinctive features. Damn it! Lu Ying cursed under his breath. Everyone got out of the car swiftly and confronted the gang like it was their greatest enemy. The foxy blonde Eugene lightly caressed his abnormally long fingers and stared at Lu Ying, who was covered in dirt and had a chunk of his hair burned off. He laughed slyly, "Ha, so you're the most formidable expert by Si Han's side, Lu Ying?" The way the other party looked at them with such contempt, like they were ants, immediately ignited the fury in Lu Ying. Lu Ying was about to make a move when Su Yi stopped him and took a step forward and said, "Since you know who we are, why would you want to make our lives difficult for us when there aren't any grudges between the Si family and your gang?" Eugene chuckled, Having no grudges means I can't kill Si Han. You. Hearing the other party casually speaking of killing Si Han like that, Lu Ying was so mad that the veins in his hands bulged out. Su Yi sneered. "Of course you can and I believe your gang has that ability, but have you thought of the consequences? If they really died here today and if Si Han really lost his life, the murderous blood gang would incite violent rage from the entire Si family. No matter how strong the murderous blood gang was, they wouldn't be able to fend off the entire Si family. So Su Yi thought it was very strange for the murderous blood gang to be so daring in taking on such a huge risk. Su Yi forced himself to remain calm and continued speaking, "No matter what your gang's motives are or who got you to do this, I believe this is not a wise choice." Hearing the threat in Su Yi's voice, the three of them seemed slightly shaken. Just as Su Yi developed a glimmer of hope in his heart, Eugene suddenly burst out into a wicked laugh. "TSK, what else can we do? I just love the thrill of this kind of mission." Little clown Jason laughed wantonly as his hoarse voice said piercingly, "I'm itching to get on with it. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." On the other side, Yi Wanwan had reached safe ground. "Miss Yi, please get on the flight," one of the bodyguards said coldly. Yi Wanwan glanced at both the bodyguards without any expression on her face. "Who said I'm leaving?" A tinge of annoyance finally surfaced in the other bodyguard's tone. "Miss Yi, the situation now is extremely dangerous. Please don't joke with your life. These people should be by Si Han's side right now, yet they were being sent to escort this woman who kept finding trouble for them. Even though they underwent training, their patience had reached their limit." Yi Wanwan disregarded what the bodyguard said as she quickly opened the luggage she kept by her side. All they saw was a piece of luggage filled with clothes. Yi Wanwan changed into a black chiffon evening gown with a little vintage black veil hat while looking at the time on her watch. She then turned to the two bodyguards and asked immediately, "How many others are there in hiding? Take them out and force them to change into the clothes in my luggage." At such a critical moment, she still has the mood to change and even wants us to join her. Does this woman know what she's doing? The bodyguard took a deep breath. "Miss Yi, please." Yi Wanwan's gaze was instantly as cold as ice and she coerced them with immense pressure. "Shut up. If you don't want your master to die, follow my instructions this instant. I'll say it again, get all the bodyguards in hiding to change into these clothes within 3 minutes. Then follow me. What does this woman mean? We finally managed to escape with such difficulty, yet she wants to go back. Wasn't this woman cowardly, abandoning the master? Do you know the Rose of Death? Yi Wanwan addressed the leader of the bodyguards. Hearing this name, his face changed slightly and he deliberated for a long while before answering, a legendary organization. If murderous blood gang was savage, then Rose of Death could cause destruction to an entire nation, but no one had ever seen the battle tactics of the Rose of Death organization since everyone who encountered them died. Why is this woman suddenly bringing this up? And how did she know about that organization when only a handful of people in our trade know about them? Yi Wanwan put on the hat. Her face, which was separated by the black veil, was extremely treacherous and ice-cold, and the aura around her changed suddenly. Right now, we're the Rose of Death. What? Does she mean that she wants us to pretend to be the Rose of Death? Although the Rose of Death was probably the only group the murderous blood gang feared, the members of the murderous blood gang weren't fools. How could they be deceived by such a clumsy disguise? Who are you to trick the murderous blood gang to fall for this clumsy disguise? The leader couldn't help but ask. Yi Wanwan shot a look at the bodyguard who doubted her. All you can do is trust me. If she wasn't prepared, obviously she wouldn't have dared to take a risk like this, but in her previous life, she obtained inside information and secrets that were unknown to many people about the Rose of Death. Dust and sand spread. Su-yi and Luing glanced at each other with darkened expressions. Seems like this gang is totally fearless. The leader, K, who hadn't said a word, lit a cigarette and waved impatiently. Get this done and over with. I still have some business to attend to later. The moment he spoke, the nerves of Luing and the others were taut and everyone braced themselves for war. Eugene was unhappy when he heard K, so he said, K, don't be like that. We finally have something so fun, so let me play with them a while longer. If you have something to do, you can leave first. K took a drag of his cigarette and furrowed his brows. Don't cause trouble. The mission this time wasn't easy. These people under Yi Han weren't easy to handle. Eugene naturally knew the other party's concerns, but he sneered, K, when did you become so timid? A group of trapped turtles, are you afraid they'll run? K gave him a sidelong glance and replied coldly, I'll give you half an hour. Tisk. Even though Eugene was still unsatisfied, he didn't dare to infuriate the leader, so he agreed reluctantly. Eugene's dark green pupils exuded a treacherous cold glow, his scarlet-red tongue licked his fingers as if in extreme thirst, his eyes filled with a blood-sucking and murderous desire, and his gaze scanned Luing and the others simultaneously. What do you think? Are you interested in playing a game with me? Su-yi replied while he discreetly hinted at some of the guards to protect the car and escape with the master once things went wrong. Please tell us about it. It's good if they can delay things. Although under such circumstances, it's quite pointless to delay things any longer. Just now, he received word that their communications with the outside world had been interrupted. Every communication device they had was blocked by the enemy's special encryption. Like what Eugene said, they were indeed a bunch of trapped turtles who could only be wantonly slaughtered by them. I heard that the experts working under Yi Han were like clouds. I really want to see for myself. If any of you can defeat me, then I'll leave one corpse intact. When Luing and the others heard Eugene's cocky challenge, they were so mad that their lungs nearly exploded. Luing stepped out from the group immediately. I'll fight with you. Luing. Don't be rash. Su-yi reminded him sternly. Eugene's strength was unfathomable, wrestling was his strong suit. His hands were scarier than a weapon, so even if he faced Luing, he might not. Lu Ying's eyes remained locked on that man, unperturbed. As the captain, as the master's most trusted man, how could he retreat and hide in the back at a moment like this? Lu Ying disregarded Su-yi as he charged towards Eugene like a sharp arrow. 1 move. 2 moves. 3 moves. Swish! Eugene's cheeks was brushed by Lu Ying's fist, leaving a trail of blood. Eugene's moves were crafty and strange, but Lu Ying was nimble and swift, so he caught Eugene off guard and got close to Eugene in just 3 moves. Eugene was stunned, almost in disbelief. He extended his hand slowly and touched his face. The man licked the blood off his hand. The shock on his face gradually turned into tremendous excitement and delight as he said, "Interesting, worthy of being Yi Han's #1 expert. Ha ha ha, this is too interesting. I decided to give you the honor of being my beloved stuffed toy. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." One of Eugene's perverted hobbies was making human stuffed toys out of skilled fighters whom he had his eyes on. He emptied out their guts and steeped their bodies in a special drug. They were like trophies for him to display at home, extremely creepy. "Then let's see if you have the abilities you keep bragging about, huh?" Lu Ying sneered and attacked again. This time, Eugene was on guard and it wasn't as easy to get close to him anymore. In a short while, both of them were in a deadlock. Although the two of them were equally matched, Yi wasn't the slightest bit relaxed. Instead, his face darkened further. This Eugene was too sly. He could tell that speed was Lu Ying's strength, so he dragged on the fight intentionally to consume his energy. Lu Ying knew what he was up to, but at the same time, he was unable to get out of Eugene's trap. If he got even a little distracted, he could lose his life. The others didn't dare help him either, afraid that it would impact his fighting negatively. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes had passed. The little clown with camouflage all over his face urged him in an eccentric tone, "Fuck. Really slow. Eugene, if you can't do it, your father shall take over." "Shut up." Eugene muttered a curse and looked at Lu Ying once again, his gaze increasingly serious. "This guy actually does have some skill, huh? He actually managed to counter me for such a long time." Minutes and seconds ticked away. Eugene's eyes suddenly lit up. "Ha, found it. This is bad." Yi was about to warn him, but it was already too late. Eugene discovered Lu Ying's flaw in his finger, which was scarier than a sharp knife, thrust straight into Lu Ying's lower abdomen, which was left open before he drew it out quickly. As his internal organs were ruptured, Lu Ying heaved a mouthful of fresh blood and his face turned pale. Eugene's finger was stained with the fresh blood. Pitter-patter, the blood flowed downwards. He stuck his scarlet-red tongue out and tasted Lu Ying's blood, drop by drop as if he was sampling a delicacy. The hit was too heavy. Lu Ying's body weakened instantly. "Lu Ying." Yi hurriedly rushed over and helped him up. "Captain." The others crowded around him as well. How perverted are these people? They could defeat even Lu Ying. Seeing the frightening wound on Lu Ying's body, Song Jing was in so much fury that his eye sockets felt like they were burning. He stepped out and bellowed, "Stupid pervert. Your father will fight with you, Song Jing. Get back. You're not his match." Lu Ying chided sternly. "Captain, we'll be dead either way. I'll definitely seek revenge for you." After proclaiming this, he lowered his voice and said, "Even if I die, at least we can gain some information about his skills." Lu Ying couldn't stop him. Song Jing charged forward after speaking. Seeing that the situation had escalated to this point, Yi could only comfort himself by saying, "Among all the bodyguards, Song Jing's the most skilled. He's also the most perceptive, so he might be able to fish out the other guy's weak spot." The most challenging person to fight among their enemies was Eugene. If there was even the slight chance of defeating him. Song Jing strode forward, looking straight ahead. He looked at the pale-faced and scarlet-tongued man and exclaimed, "After you." Another little miscellaneous fish. Isn't this fish a little weaker than the one before? However, he's quite interesting. I shall play with you then." Eugene stared at him. The excitement caused his body to spasm mechanically. His gaze looked as if he was enjoying a feast. He cracked his neck and in the next second, his body charged forward as swift as lightning. Song Jing's eyes lit up and he charged forward as well. Seeing the two people tangled together, everyone's hearts were in their throats. "Liked it?" Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The little clown Jason and the other murderous blood gang members were calm and unruffled amidst the chaos, with a treacherous smile on each of their faces, causing the guards to feel more and more uneasy. Watching the two people fighting, the little clown said in a sympathetic voice, "TSK TSK, so naive, he's actually trying to find Eugene's weakness." In the blink of an eye, Song Jing and Eugene already made about 100 moves on each other. However, Lu Ying and the others didn't have the slightest glee in their hearts. Instead, their faces became paler. That pervert looked like he was fooling around with a mouse the whole time, his fingers as sharp as iron left wounds on Song Jing with every move. Every wound penetrated deep into his flesh, thrusting towards his heart. Although the wounds weren't fatal, it made him feel extreme anguish, a fate worse than death. In just a few short minutes, Song Jing became a completely bloodied person. The blood couldn't be seen on his black clothes, but beneath his feet, wherever he stepped, were trails of blood. What made them enter even more despair and disbelief was that this perverted man already made 100 moves on Song Jing, but he hadn't even shown a hint of his true strength. Lu Ying's entire face was darkened. He struggled to get up, but because of intense pain, he sharply bent down, his forehead dripping with cold sweat as his breath quickened. "Hurry! Stop, Song Jing. This asshole is obviously fooling around with you." However, the moment Lu Ying said that, a bone-chilling sound reverberated. Eugene's hand thrust into Song Jing's abdomen like a blade. The pain was so excruciating that he nearly fainted, but shortly after, he straightened up once again, allowing the blood to flow. He charged forward, staggering. But at this moment, Song Jing was akin to an arrow at the end of its flight. He barely made a move before his opponent attacked his lower abdomen again intentionally. Enough! Both Lu Ying's fists were almost crushed and his eyes were blood red. The other guards had red eyes as well. They yelled and prepared to charge forward. "Don, don't come over." Song Jing knew that even if the others came, they would also be sending themselves to a quick death. He wanted to delay this eventual outcome, so he used all his strength and pounced onto Eugene. Eugene didn't want to play the cat chasing the mouse game anymore, so every move he made was blood-sucking and terrifying. There wasn't a good piece of flesh left on Song Jing's body anymore. So he's only at this level. Boring. Eugene muttered dully as a hint of boredom flashed in his eyes. At the same time, his fingers attacked the left side of Song Jing's chest, looking as if it could pierce into Song Jing's heart the next second. Captain, sorry." Song Jing turned to look at his captain and beloved teammates one last time, his eyes filled with regret. The dense clouds in the horizon tumbled even more violently. The air was thick with the smell of blood and there was a deadly stillness in everyone's eyes. Just at this moment, an enticing and charming voice of a woman suddenly reverberated in the air. "Guy in black, attack his LU1, LU2, ST13. Song Jing was already dizzy, but he still held on to his last shred of clarity, unwilling to die just like that. When these words entered his ears, he instinctively used the last bit of energy in him. He didn't hold back and rapidly attacked the 3 acupuncture points that the mysterious woman mentioned. A cry of pain. It didn't come from Song Jing but from the mouth of that pervert, Eugene. It was as if he suffered a huge blow. He held his shoulders and retreated a few steps back. And just like that, Song Jing dodged a fatal attack. These are acupuncture points, liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. A sudden turn of events made everyone at the scene, including those from the murderous blood gang, astonished. What just happened? A car engine resounded. The people who had their attention on Song Jing and Eugene suddenly noticed that 2 black cars had arrived without a sound. "Who are they?" the little clown shouted. "I already sealed off the entire town, so how did these guys appear? Most importantly, who's so daring to break into the murderous blood gang's territory? Courting death, huh?" As this incident was too sudden and they had no clue who the other party was, everyone acted cautiously. Everyone's gaze turned towards the strange car. Lu Ying and the others quickly saved Song Jing while also casting suspicious looks at the car. The one who spoke seems to be a woman. Lu Ying and Song Jing together couldn't even defeat Eugene, yet that woman was able to find Eugene's weakness and allowed Song Jing to escape a deadly move. This is simply unbelievable. Who exactly is this person? Under everybody's gaze, a tall guy in a windbreaker with a silver mask covering half his face emerged from the car in the middle, stepping out from the driver's seat. Other subordinates with a similar costume also got out from the other car. After the man got off, he walked over to the passenger seat, pulled the car door open respectfully and helped a woman in a black chiffon dress out of the car. The woman in a black chiffon dress also wore a vintage hat with a black, lace veil concealing half of her face. She held on to the man's arm lightly and stepped out of the car leisurely. Her actions were as graceful as a medieval upper-class lady. Although the black veil covered her face and they couldn't see her face clearly from a distance, judging by the shape of her red lips and delicate and perfect chin, they could tell this was a beauty who could turn all living things upside down. Where did you guys come from? Give us a name. Eugene didn't expect that his boat would be overturned in the gutter, so he glared at the person approaching as he clamped a hand on his injuries. Tisk. The woman didn't speak a word and simply gave a chuckle. She didn't respond to Eugene's question. That chuckle made it seem like she viewed the other party as a mere mole, cricket or ant, obviously implying that he didn't have the right to speak to her and wasn't even worthy of being looked at. Eugene naturally noticed the mockery in that chuckle. He was just about to explode in fury when the woman suddenly turned to look at the leader of the murderous blood gang, K. Her languid and lusty voice slowly left her red lips. Chiu Hong Hai, very mighty of you, huh? You're just a stray dog banished from Lu Yenyang's army who's now gotten a second chance and turned into the head of a mob. You even dared to snatch someone I love from me. When she said that last phrase, the woman's languid voice turned cold all of a sudden like a bitterly cold glacier, causing his bones to tremble. The leader of the murderous blood gang, K, who was as still as a mountain and completely expressionless all this time, had a change of expression when he heard the woman reveal his true identity. Following that, he stared at the clothes of the woman's entourage, then glanced at the woman's black chiffon dress. A bone-chilling fear surfaced on his face. His voice almost quivered as he snapped at little clown Jason and Eugene who were in the woman's way. Jason, Eugene. Back off. Don't be disrespectful. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Seeing that the leader of the murderous blood gang, K, actually made his people back off and acted so respectfully towards Yuan Wan, a subtle hint of surprise appeared in the guards' eyes under their silver masks. It actually worked. Just half an hour ago, they almost delivered Yuan Wan to a safe place. As they rushed to send her to the plane, who would have guessed that this woman didn't want to leave after all? She even opened the huge luggage she insisted on bringing along, then changed into a black chiffon dress and made the bodyguards change into the available masks and jackets. Obviously, they were unwilling at first. She actually wanted them to play dress up at a critical moment like this? It was simply unbelievable. But the girl's stern persuasion and the look in her eyes, similar to the immense pressure they only saw in their master, made them obey her subconsciously. At most, they would lose their lives if they failed. They would rather die for their master than escape trying to protect this woman. At first, everyone thought this clumsy disguise would definitely be seen through, all of Dark Team 1 already prepared to lose their lives. However, the outcome came as a surprise. Not only did this woman reveal Eugene's weak points the moment she arrived, saving Song Jing's life when it was hanging by a thread, she also revealed K's true identity, which absolutely no one could have known. The astute K was actually fooled by her. At this moment, every bodyguard had somewhat mixed feelings, but none of them showed any change in their expressions. To them, this disguise was very basic, but Yuan Wan, a woman who grew up in a greenhouse, remained incredibly calm like the breeze in the face of such villains even while dealing with them, suppressing even K. It truly astonished them. This woman seems to be completely different from what we imagined. At this moment, the murderous blood gang was in shock. Kay was actually the old number 1 in the Flowing Flames mercenary army, Chiu Hong Hai. The Chiu Hong Hai, who was previously banished by the Flowing Flames mercenary army and was shut out by the entire mercenary union at the same time. When they heard what that woman said about Kay's true identity, Jason and Eugene's faces changed instantly. Kay's true identity was not to be spoken of. There were a few people who offered hundreds of millions of dollars yet still weren't able to find out who he was. Even people in the gang, who'd been following Kay around, didn't know about it. How did this woman find out? And judging by Kay's expression, she actually got it right. No wonder even Kay had a sudden change in attitude, as though he was confronted by a formidable enemy. This person knew Kay's identity. She mustn't be underestimated. The little clown sized up the newcomer carefully. All he saw was that the group was all dressed in pure black jackets, a red rose embroidered discreetly on their chest area. Their jackets were blown open by the wind and inside was an eye-piercing red. Also, the iconic silver mask on those people's faces. Looking at the woman in front, dressed in a luxurious black chiffon dress, a black veil concealing her face. Could it be? The little clown seemed to recall something as a trace of horror appeared on his face and he took a step back instinctively. Rose. Rose of Death. Hearing these 3 words, Rose of Death, Eugene was flabbergasted. What did you just say? Rose of Death? How could that be? Rose of Death, simply put, was the strongest organization that only existed in legends. Nobody had seen the real face of any member from the Rose of Death and there were only a few rumors about them. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. It was said that everyone in the organization dressed in a jacket with a rose embroidered on it and wore a silver mask on their face. The leader of the group was a woman who wore a black dress with a black veil covering her face and people called her the Black Widow. Nobody knew where this woman came from or her age. It was rumored that she was already over 60 years old but had a youthful look, and there were some who said she looked frightening and sinister. And this woman was always accompanied by her men, although not in large numbers. One could tell from their aura and steady steps that they weren't ordinary men. They looked like they were ice-cold human weapons. Their appearance and style of dress were all in line with the rumors. Leading a troop like this. Could it be that she's the Black Widow? Eugene staggered and took a step back with Jason. Talk about perverted and bloodthirsty. This woman was the absolute pioneer. Her methods were 1,000 times more savage than Eugene's. And this woman especially liked men who were good-looking and of a high status. Even the chief of the Si Bo Gu clan in Country M was captured by her. At the time, the So Bo Gu clan showed up in full strength, vicious for revenge, but in the end, they were completely exterminated overnight. 10 years ago, when the Rose of Death was the most active, they provoked many formidable powers, always resulting in the destruction of those formidable powers. Even if it was an entire nation, it was simply a toy that could easily be crushed in the palm of the Rose of Death, much less a clan. If they fought with a power like this, there'd only be one outcome, death. No wonder. No wonder this woman actually hit the nail on the head and found out where their trap was. She even knew every bit of inside information about Kay. At the same time, Lu Ying and the others already felt something was amiss and retreated a few meters back. Rose of Death. The hope that had just risen in Lu Ying instantly turned into even deeper despair. How's that possible? Su Yi's face was shrouded in fear. Isn't that the legendary organization? There hasn't been any news about them for 10 years. Initially, when he saw that woman helping Song Jing, he thought they were reinforcements. Who knew that they were an even scarier opponent, and judging by the other party's tone, they were also coming for them. This was simply like leaving the tiger's den and entering a wolf's lair. Everybody's heart was at a low ebb. Song Jing stared at the bodyguard next to the woman in the black dress and stuttered, "Why does that bodyguard's figure look so familiar?" It wasn't just that. It might have been his imagination, but other than the bodyguard, he realized that the woman actually resembled Yuan Wan. Bodyguard? When Lu Ying and Sui heard him, they turned towards the bodyguard wearing a silver mask, and certainly, he looked quite familiar. His figure is quite similar to 11. Sui mumbled. 11 was the leader of the small group in charge of escorting Yi Wanwan away. Since his figure was leaner and taller than an average person, it was easily recognizable. When Sui brought up 11's name, Lu Ying's face darkened in an instant as he thought about Yi Wanwan, who ditched them and fled. Although Lu Ying and the others found his figure similar to 11's, they didn't think too much about it. They looked at the two powers in front with taut nerves. In the end, we still have to die here, today. If they ended up in the rows of death's hands, they might as well land in the hands of the murderous blood gang. It was rumored that this Black Widow would immerse herself in a young lady's fresh blood daily in order to maintain a youthful complexion. It was also rumored that she was extremely fond of tormenting and killing good-looking men. Many leaders in various clans were tortured by her hands. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. There wasn't a single news story about them in 10 years, yet the Black Widow had her eyes on the C family. Senior, you too have an interest in the C family? Kay probed, trying to fish out information. After all, this kind of organization that only existed in rumors was too mysterious. Even Kay had never seen them before. Although this woman seemed to have great power, Kay still had his doubts about her identity, being the cautious person he was. The woman stroked her nails languidly. Do I need to inform you about whomever I'm interested in? No need. No need. Of course, you don't have to. Just that. Hearing the murderous tone of the woman, Kay looked like he was in a difficult position and thought carefully before he said, Senior, even if I was given 100 guts, I wouldn't dare to compete with you for someone you wanted, but what a coincidence this time. Our mission was to get these people as well. If we fail, it's very difficult for us to account for it, so can we work something out with you, Senior? Oh. What do you have in mind? The woman glanced at him casually. Kay shifted his gaze and suggested politely, the person whom Senior has taken a fancy to is only the head of the C family. If Senior allows us, the murderous blood gang, to take these people away today, I will definitely offer a better-looking gigolo. Senior will be satisfied for sure. Tisk. A woman's chuckle reverberated in the air. Her laughter made one's bones tremble. Kay picked up an inexplicably bad premonition and didn't know what the woman meant by her laugh. His heart pounded continuously as he said, Senior. The stormy rain and strong winds came abruptly, turning the skies gloomy. Although the woman's tone was still languid and casual, the atmosphere underwent a complete change. How about you offer yourself to me, huh? Those little cuties of mine should be very interested in you. Out came a huge sense of oppression that even an SSS-level mercenary like him couldn't withstand, causing his forehead to overflow with cold sweat. Qiu Honghai immediately replied, No, I wouldn't dare. Those little cuties that this woman mentioned weren't just any cute pets, they were wild dogs that had been feeding on human blood and flesh ever since they were little. To her, the leader of the murderous blood gang was only good enough to feed to her dogs. Such insulting comments came from her mouth, yet he didn't even dare to show a hint of anger. Wouldn't dare. But I think you have quite some guts, treating me like a hungry and thirsty slut, huh? You think I'd touch any kind of garbage? The atmosphere around the woman became even more intolerable and the mysterious troop behind her entered combat mode as well. How could that be? I definitely didn't mean it that way. Qiu Honghai's back was almost soaked in sweat. I failed, as expected. How could the Black Widow give up on what she wants? Furthermore, she's extremely fussy when it comes to men. However, this mission's extremely important, I can't fail. With that thought, Kay was stuck in a dilemma. On the other side, Lu Ying and the others were filled with fury as they listened to these two powers bargaining, treating their master like a toy. But at this moment, they were like meat on someone else's chopping board. Under such strong powers, they could only allow themselves to be trampled upon. At this moment, the tall and lean subordinate next to the woman suddenly burst forth with iciness in his eyes as he shot a look towards the murderous blood gang. Get out of our way then. Yi. Yes, yes. Chiu Honghai hurriedly retreated to one side. The prey he'd gotten a hold of escaped just like that. It was obvious that Chiu Honghai was unwilling to give up, but as the saying went, the mantis stalks the cicada, but behind them lurks the oriole. The woman was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Boss, these people, are they really the Rose of Death? At this moment, a skinny, red-haired member of the murderous blood gang walked over to Chiu Honghai's side and whispered in his ear. Chiu Honghai's face darkened. His identity had already been exposed, so aside from the Rose of Death, who else could have access to such information? Little clown Jason observed the row of people opposite and mumbled, those people by her side are all high-level experts as well. It was known to all how the Black Widow loved capturing highly revered and good-looking leaders, so everything fit. Eugene didn't say a word, his expression was ugly the entire time. Due to this woman's appearance, a nobody, whom he almost killed, actually attacked his Achilles heel and escaped from his clutches. It was an utter embarrassment. The red-haired guy mumbled to himself doubtfully, but the appearance of this group of people really is too strange. The Rose of Death's been inactive for 10 years, so why would they appear now all of a sudden? The red-haired guy thought about it and continued, furthermore, we've been talking for such a long time, yet why haven't we seen the personal weapon of the Black Widow? Hearing what the red-haired guy said, Eugene's eyes lit up instantly. That's right. I almost forgot about that. The Black Widow's extremely swift, so nobody's seen her weapon clearly before, but I was lucky to see the sketch from a reclusive craftsman. I can tell if it's authentic or not with just one look. Have you really seen it before? Chiu Honghai asked. Without a doubt. How does that thing look like? I heard it's very complex. There's no way there's a fake out there. Chiu Honghai said in a low voice. Eugene sneered, Tisk, how does it look like? Other than the Black Widow herself and the people within the Rose of Death, absolutely no one knows. And that craftsman was once a member of the Rose of Death. If Old Sixth hadn't mentioned it just now, I would have forgotten about it. I will find out that woman's true identity right now. Eugene spoke while rubbing his injured shoulder with a darkened expression. Then he took a step forward, looking in the direction of the black-veiled woman. He said, I'm Alex Eugene. I've highly revered you for a long time and heard that your golden cicada silk is quite formidable. You're able to sever heads from 1,000 miles away. Not sure if we're fortunate enough to see it today. Hearing Eugene the Ripper's words, the Dark Team 1 leader by Yi Wanwan's side, who had just relaxed a little, instantly tensed up again. The other bodyguards also became alert. We're done for. Clothing and makeup were easy to replicate and it wouldn't be a big issue even if there were some inaccuracies, but with weapons, especially the personal weapon of the Black Widow, only the true members of the Rose of Death would know how it really looked. In addition to figuring out how the weapon looked like, even if they knew, making it would definitely be very complicated. It wasn't something that could be forged easily. Yi Wanwan might have special means of finding out about some things, but this. Since the murderous blood gang brought it up, obviously they were prepared and knew the Black Widow's weapon very well. If they simply brought out a random weapon, they'd definitely see through it with one glance. What should we do now? We've already gotten so far, how can we fail now? It wasn't obvious on their faces, but everyone was already prepared for the worst. Seeing that the black-veiled woman hadn't replied after a long time, a mocking smirk appeared on Eugene's face as he said casually, What is it? Senior, don't tell me you left in a rush today so you forgot to bring it with you, huh? A dead silence filled the air with only the howling of the wind heard. In just a moment, the atmosphere became extremely stagnant. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Just as Chiu Honghai, Jason, and the others were beginning to get suspicious, the woman suddenly made a move. All they saw was the woman raising her fingers as fair as jade, lightly playing with a wisp of black hair by her ear. When she lifted her arm, her long sleeve slowly revealed her elbow, then the wisp of gold silk that the woman was twirling instantly entered Eugene's sight. The woman's eyes under the veil were like a beast strangling its prey as she looked at Eugene and said gently in a dark, infernal voice, "Are you talking about this?" In her previous life, Sihan didn't hide anything from her even if he was discussing classified information, so she knew about more than just the gang's wardrobe. She hadn't expected that those stories she listened to while she was bored would become so useful now. From Eugene's perspective, he could see clearly that an extremely simple piece of golden silk was wrapped around the woman's wrist. Eugene's look of ridicule immediately froze on his face. His eyes constricted due to fear and his body instinctively took a step back quickly. Everyone assumed that the Black Widow's weapon was complicated and scary, but only those who had seen it before would know that the terrifying killing weapon was simply just a line of golden silk. But it was this line of golden silk that was stained with the blood of countless legendary fighters. After seeing that piece of golden silk, Eugene was no longer as calm as before. His body shook all over and he could no longer speak properly. Thank you, Senior, seeing it today, it's certainly remarkable. Eugene spoke incoherently as he watched the murderous intention in the woman's eyes. One movement of that woman's fingers could extinguish his life. As expected, when he was about to turn and leave, the woman's languid voice came from behind, "Since you know so much about my golden silk, then naturally, you should know the consequences of whoever's seen it." Of course he knew, those who had seen the golden silk were all dead. Seeing the murderous intention in the Black Widow's eyes becoming increasingly stronger, Eugene's body stiffened. He didn't dare to say a word and could only turn to Chiu Hong Hai and said anxiously, "Boss, let's go. There's no need to turn everything upside down here for a mission." It really was the Rose of Death, and if they angered them, their entire organization would be dragged into it. Chiu Hong Hai looked at Eugene's reaction and knew he'd confirmed the Black Widow's identity from seeing her weapon. He made a prompt decision and immediately ordered all his men, "Everyone, retreat now." After speaking, he turned to the black-veiled woman and hurriedly cupped one fist in the other hand, as a sign of respect. "Since these are people that Senior wants, we obviously wouldn't dare to keep them. We'll leave this instant. Please forgive us if we have offended Senior in any way today." Hee. As they were about to leave, an enchanting laughter that gave them the creeps came from behind. The woman lazily grasped her guard's arm, turned around and looked at the rest of her entourage and exclaimed, "It's been a long time since we've met such reckless people, how amusing. Right, guys?" When Bodyguard 11 heard Yuanwan's words, he immediately understood her implication and his cold gaze swept across the murderous blood gang who were ready to leave as he said in an icy tone, "Hold it there. Has Master allowed you guys to leave? You still dared to play tricks like this even when you knew my master's rules. Captain Chiu, have you considered the consequences?" Hearing that, Chiu Hong Hai stopped in his tracks while Eugene's singlet was soaked in cold sweat. It was clearly implied that they wanted him to leave without his life. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At this moment, Eugene's intestines turned green. He regretted acting so rashly and taking such risks. But it was too late to say anything now. Thus, Eugene immediately turned to Chiu Hong Hai and said, "Boss, so what if they're the Rose of Death? They haven't appeared in 10 years, who knows how powerful they are now? Maybe they're just putting on an act here. We'll be able to exterminate them for sure. Then, wouldn't we make a name for our gang?" When the entourage behind the black-veiled woman heard that, they all burst out in laughter like they just heard the funniest joke. "Ha ha 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 ha, Master's right, it's been quite some time since we've met such an interesting bunch. Want to test the strength of the Rose of Death? Why don't we have some fun with them today, huh? Don't die right away. You must live." Their laughter was deranged and ear-piercing, reverberating above their heads and causing their bones to tremble. At this moment, Chiu Honghai was unable to maintain his composure any longer. The murderous blood gang, which could cause one to be terror-stricken at the mention of their name, was a weak little sheep about to be slaughtered in front of these people. Chiu Honghai turned to Eugene and yelled, "Shut your mouth." Never mind if Eugene died alone, but now he was dragging the entire gang down. They could be destroyed. They didn't have any options left. In order to protect the gang, Eugene had to die. Chiu Honghai's thoughts moved rapidly. He came to a decision very quickly as he took the gun from Little Clown's hand without warning and aimed it at Eugene's head. "Boss! You!" A bang resounded. Eugene's words hadn't even left his mouth when Chiu Honghai blasted his brains out. His bloody flesh and shattered skull splattered on the face of the man next to him. A thick, bloody stench lingered in the air, causing one to feel nauseous. "Senior, I wasn't strict enough, so my man was insensible and made Senior mad. I dealt with this person, so I hope Senior will be satisfied." Chiu Honghai remained in an apologetic bow after speaking like he was waiting for his sentence. The beads of sweat on Chiu Honghai's forehead fell to the ground, drop by drop. After some time, the follower next to the Black Widow looked towards his master for her command, then he finally glanced coldly at Chiu Honghai and exclaimed, "Get lost." "Yes, thank you, Senior, thank you Senior Hai Han." Just those two words made Chiu Honghai act like he received amnesty. He thanked her repeatedly, then commanded all his subordinates to withdraw without delay, afraid that she would renege on her words. They didn't dare to pause for a second. The group of people vanished in a split second. They retreated. The murderous blood gang actually retreated just like that. Lu Ying and the others stood rooted to the ground as they watched the members of the murderous blood gang retreat like the tide. They were beyond amazed. After they returned to their senses, they were in even more despair and fear. If they were facing the murderous blood gang, they might have had a chance at winning, but now they were facing the Rose of Death. They wouldn't even have a chance to resist. Lu Ying and the others stared at the group of people opposite like they were an incoming enemy. After the murderous blood gang left, the bodyguards around Yuanwan didn't dare to act blindly without thinking and remained in their disguise, waiting for instructions from Yuanwan. Initially, they were like Lu Ying and the others. They didn't understand why their master would choose this kind of delicate greenhouse flower. But this time, Yuanwan's refusal to leave, insistence on forcing them to change into disguises, and ability to make the murderous blood gang retreat completely changed the way they looked at this woman, and there was even a hint of admiration in their eyes. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. They all assumed she was just a coward who was only interested in saving her own neck, who'd think she would actually lead them out of their impasse. Under all the bodyguards' awestruck gazes and icy glares from Lu Ying and the others who were still in the dark, the woman in a black chiffon dress slowly walked towards the opposite party one step at a time. The golden silk emitted a cold aura as she spoke languidly, "The people in our way are gone. Now, we can finally start our main course." 11 and the other bodyguards weren't skeptical of Yuanwan's words at all and followed her like her shadow. Lu Ying spat out, "Witch. Just kill us if you want to. Stop talking nonsense." When Yuanwan heard that, the corners of her lips lifted. Why couldn't she ever escape the name, witch? Yuanwan hid her expression. She maintained a cold gaze and lifted her hand. Dark Team 1 got the signal and immediately surrounded everyone. They were Si Han's elite force, so naturally, all these remaining people were no match for them at all. Furthermore, Lu Ying and Song Jing were already gravely injured. Lu Ying and the others could only watch as their people entered the wolves' pit one by one, right after escaping from a tiger's cave. It wasn't a good idea for them to linger there, so Yuanwan didn't delay any longer. Following Yuanwan's orders, Lu Ying and the others were seized and quickly transported to a safe place. After Yuanwan was sure they were out of danger, she got out of the car and walked towards the car in the middle. 11 respectfully opened the door of the back seat for her. All Yuanwan could see was a pale, frosty man lying in the car. When saw Si Han again, there was an inexplicable feeling in her heart. Although the process was extremely dangerous, she finally changed course from her previous life. What happened in her previous life wouldn't happen again. Sihan wouldn't be severely injured and his condition wouldn't deteriorate to that stage. He might even have a chance of recovery. From the moment she discovered that Sihan was going to Country B a week ago, she started planning. With all her strength and might, she was unable to prevent this incident from happening in the first place, so she was left with only this method. She had to use the secrets she found out in her previous life and disguise herself as the only feared enemy of the murderous blood gang, the Rose of Death. Actually, she didn't have any experience in playing the part of a perverted, bloodthirsty, demonic woman, but thankfully, when she really got into the role, it was easier than expected. Plus, Sihan's Dark Team 1 was truly well-trained and worked perfectly with her, successfully tricking those people. They even scared Qiu Honghai so much that he personally shot Grim Reaper Eugene. Don't lay a finger on Master. Yuanwan had just extended her arm when Luing started howling like a crazy man. What if I insist on touching him, huh? Yuanwan spoke as her fingers lightly caressed Sihan's face. Following that, under everyone's gaze, Yuanwan bent over and imprinted her red lips directly on the man's cold, thin lips. I'll kill you. Seeing his master getting tainted, Luing immediately exploded in violent fury. Yuanwan watched as Luing charged towards her. She remained silently by Sihan's side without any change in her expression. As expected, once Luing got close to her, he was immediately stopped by 11 who was at Yuanwan's side. He couldn't even touch the edges of her clothes. Since she felt that she hadn't enraged Luing enough, Yuanwan gave him the side eye and said, "Tisk, not only do I want to touch him, but I want to sleep with him too." All the bodyguards at the side, cough cough Miss Wanwan, please stop playing. Luing wasn't beaten to death by the murderous blood gang but almost died from anger thanks to her. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Luing was indeed so mad that he was close to exploding. He charged even more crazily towards Yuanwan without any regard for his life, like he was ready to take her down with him. 11 couldn't hold it in anymore and yelled, "Luing! Stop!" Hearing this utterly familiar voice, Luing froze in his attacking position as he turned to the man in a daze. 11 removed the mask from his face, turned to Luing and said, "Luing, don't be rash. It's me. 11. After Luing saw his face underneath the mask, he was stunned. Even Su Yi was dumbfounded. All of them who had been prepared for a life-or-death struggle were stupefied. What made them even more shocked was when the Black Widow and the rest of her entourage also removed the masks from their faces. Seeing everybody revealing their true faces and seeing familiar faces one after another, Luing, Su Yi, Song Jing and everyone else felt like they were in a dream. These people, these members of the Rose of Death, were actually Dark Team 1 who escorted Yuanwan away. Didn't they leave already? What's going on here exactly? Why did the members of the Rose of Death turn into Dark Team 1? Could it be that this whole thing was fake? Was Dark Team 1 disguising as the Rose of Death? This is simply unbelievable. If the Rose of Death was Dark Team 1, then, the Black Widow. A light bulb went off in Lu Ying's mind when his eyes swiftly shifted towards Yuanwan. Noticing Lu Ying's shocked gaze, Yuanwan slowly removed her hat, revealing the stunning face that was concealed by the black veil. Witnessing that woman's face slowly emerging from behind the black veil, Lu Ying's pupils gradually constricted and eventually showed extreme shock and confusion. It was as if his entire body had turned into a hardened statue. Yuanwan smiled. "Captain Luing, I trust you've been well since we last met." After being in a trance for a full 10 seconds, Luing finally returned to his senses. Yuanwan. How is this possible? The Black Widow was actually Yuanwan. The woman with that powerful aura who scared the murderous blood gang so much that they fled like drowning dogs was Yuanwan. Luing and everyone else was flabbergasted as they stood there like they'd just seen a ghost. How's it you? Didn't you leave already? and Dark Team 1, you guys, how could you guys? Lu Ying was in so much shock that he couldn't even speak coherently. Su Yi's face was also relatively surprised. No wonder he thought this woman's figure and tone were somewhat familiar, especially when she got close to Master and infuriated Lu Ying on purpose. That familiarity was striking. But he never expected that she was actually Yuan Wan. Song Jing, who was standing next to Lu Ying, had a completely blank face as well. He had no idea how to react. The person who saved his life just now was actually that useless troublemaker who only knew how to drag them down? Everyone looked at one another in confusion. After a long while, they finally snapped out of it. 11, how did all this happen? Lu Ying asked in surprise. 11 had already anticipated their reaction and smiled. It's a long story. Anyway, it's all thanks to Miss Wanwan this time. Let's talk after we get into the house. All of your injuries must be treated immediately. Lu Ying, treat our injuries my ass. Who cares about our injuries right now? I'm on the verge of going nuts. Bad people who had lost power liked it. Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At the same time in Imperial City, C family's old residence, Old Madam C was sipping tea in the living room. Qin Ruoshi and another board member of the company came rushing over. Both of you, why are you here at this hour? The old madam furrowed her brows and looked somewhat worn down as she asked. She wasn't sure why, but she had felt uneasy the entire day. Now that Qin Ruoshi and a senior from the company appeared at this hour, a bad feeling arose instantly. Qin Ruoshi glanced at the board member next to her. The board member looked like he was in a difficult position and had a hard time finding his words. Then he turned to Qin Ruoshi and said, Miss Ruoshi, why don't you do the talking? Qin Ruoshi hesitated for a moment and considered her words carefully before finally speaking up. Grandma, I have something I need to discuss with you, but when you hear it, please remain calm and don't get too agitated. When the old madam heard that, she frowned. What is it? Is it that serious? Yes. Qin Ruoshi took a deep breath. It's Ajio, something happened to him. The old madam's face changed instantly as she probed impatiently, Little Ninth? What happened to Little Ninth? Qin Ruoshi replied in a grave voice, Ajio and the others were surrounded by an unknown force in Country B. Su Yi issued a signal for help and we immediately organized a rescue party, but we didn't expect that the unknown force was so powerful. They had the entire Country B under their power and our people couldn't figure out their specific position at all. Su Yi's network was also cut off, so he wasn't able to communicate with us. We've completely lost all communications from that end. On Si Yihan's side, they'd lost all contact with them, their whereabouts were unknown and their survival was uncertain. Although they were worried the old madam couldn't handle it, they didn't dare to keep such critical news from her. The moment Qin Ruoshi's words landed, the old madam stood up suddenly but she only managed to get up halfway before she fainted from the shock. Grandma! Old madam! The old madam fainted suddenly, causing the living room to enter into chaos. Qin Ruoshi got the housekeeper to fetch the doctor while she massaged the old madam's temples. The old madam awoke after some time and she immediately grabbed Qin Ruoshi's clothes, agitated. You, what did you say? Ruoshi, what did you just say? Ajio and the others were abducted? That seems to be the case at the moment. Qin Ruoshi's expression was solemn. There were shadows under her eyes, it was obvious that she hadn't slept well. The old madam's face turned gloomy. What kind of people are they and how dare they lay hands on the C family? They're an organization called Murderous Blood Gang and the C family didn't have any disputes with them at all. I'm guessing they were hired by someone, Qin Ruoshi replied. Hearing these three words, Murderous Blood Gang, the old madam's face turned pale instantly. She had definitely heard rumors about that organization. What kind of people, what kind of deep hatred must they have? They actually hired such vicious villains to attack the C family. At first, she wondered whether their objective was to obtain those expensive pieces of equipment or to disrupt important negotiations. Now it seemed like, this wasn't a robbery at all. They were obviously forcing little Ninth to his death. At this moment, the old madam suddenly recalled what Exine Yu said to her before. She told her that before they left, Wanwan kept pestering little Ninth and tried to stop little Ninth from leaving. She even said she dreamed that he would be in danger. At that time, she just assumed that the little brat was willful and insensible, trying to find excuses to keep her boyfriend at home. Who knew Ajio would really encounter danger? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. As Luing and Song Jing's injuries were severe, the first thing they did after they arrived at the Chinese border was to get treatment. Once they settled down, they could finally learn about the detailed sequence of events from 11. Faced with eager pairs of eyes staring at him, 11 started explaining everything from the beginning. Then we indeed escorted Miss Wanwan to a safe place, but after we reached our destination, Miss Wanwan suddenly refused to leave. Refused to leave? Su Yi mumbled. Yes, we were furious at the time. At the hotel, under such crucial life-or-death conditions, she still insisted on bringing her luggage filled with clothes and makeup. We thought she was just being difficult, but little did we know. Recalling the events, 11's tone was still somewhat emotional as he said, she brought along her luggage on purpose. It was filled with props to disguise us as the Rose of Death. Luing, Su Yi, and all the bodyguards turned to look at one another, confused. The huge black luggage that Yuanwan treated like her baby actually contained all of that? Luing immediately asked, then what about the Black Widow's weapon, the golden silk? 11 rubbed his nose. Cough, according to Miss Wanwan, she bought it online for $9.90. Those clothes were also custom-made online. Since she bought many pieces, she got them for a wholesale price, less than $100 per piece. Everyone's expression, they actually relied on a bunch of cheap props to scare away the terrifying murderous blood gang? If they hadn't lived through the story just now, it would truly feel as if they were listening to a fairy tale. But the thing is, how did she know so much about the Rose of Death? She even knew about Kay's real identity. Also, she made all these preparations beforehand, someone from the group asked. This was probably on everyone's mind as well. 11 waved his hand. I'm not too sure myself. At this moment, a half-naked Song Jing wrapped up in bandages coughed lightly and muttered, cough. It couldn't be that she predicted this again, right? At his words, everybody's expression was muted. On the first day they arrived, Yuanwan predicted that Luing would meet a bloody disaster. On the third day, she predicted that Song Jing would encounter a romantic calamity. Also, even before the trip, Yuanwan was certain that Master would encounter danger during his trip. Everything she predicted, every single incident, came to pass. Amazing. I suddenly realized that everything Miss Wanwan predicted till now actually happened. Isn't this a little too unbelievable, huh? 666. She's indeed the woman our master has his eyes on. She's truly unlike any other. Everyone started exclaiming one after another, but of course, there were people who still had their doubts. How could there be someone who could really predict the future? She's just an ordinary and weak woman, so how could she have known all these insider secrets? After hearing 11's explanation and seeing everyone's doubtful expressions, Suyi's gaze swept across everybody and he said, it doesn't matter how Miss Wanwan got to know all this. What's certain is that she helped us and saved all our lives, so she definitely doesn't have any evil intentions. This was true. If it wasn't for her, all of them would have died. Hearing what Su Yi said, the doubts in everyone's hearts dissipated. Especially Dark Team 1, who had gone through the life-or-death situation with Yi Wanwan and rescued the others, didn't have any suspicions at all. Yi Wanwan could have easily chosen to protect herself, yet she chose to walk straight into danger and save the others. This alone was enough to earn their respect. What made them admire her more was that as a woman under such intense pressure, she was calmer than them, yet they had even undergone training for such circumstances. She personally led them to take control of the entire situation and escape from danger. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Lu Ying was unable to refute what Su Yi said. As the leader, he was unable to protect Master, he couldn't even protect his own men. If she hadn't appeared when she did, Song Jing would have already been a corpse and he never would have forgiven himself for that. Yu Wanwan saved every one of them, he had nothing to say to this. In the bedroom, Yu Wanwan had just fed Si Yi Han his medicine and was about to help him change. The man didn't have his usual terrifying, cold aura around him while he was asleep. The weak appearance of this powerful man actually gave off a harmless and gentle feeling. It had been an entire day, yet there weren't any signs of Si Yi Han waking up at all. She remembered that in her past life, Si Yi Han was in a coma for 3 months, he almost didn't make it. Thankfully, he wasn't injured this time, but there was significant damage done to his body and there could still be more hidden symptoms to come. She wasn't sure how long he would remain unconscious before waking up. Yu Wanwan was lost in thought when there came a knock on the door. Dong dong dong. A bodyguard walked in carrying food. Miss Wanwan, have a bite? The little bodyguard had an obvious change in attitude towards her. All the men under Lu Ying's command didn't display their displeasure on the surface, but the coldness and mockery in their eyes were unconcealable before. All right, thank you. Just leave the food there. The little bodyguard placed the food down but didn't leave immediately. Instead, he stood there and seemed hesitant to speak. What is it? Is there anything else? Yu Wanwan asked after noticing that he wasn't leaving. The little bodyguard blushed like he was somewhat embarrassed, then he scratched his head and hesitated before speaking. Nothing, it's just that. Miss Wanwan, could you read my fortune for me please? Yu Wanwan was stunned. Huh? Help him do what? The little bodyguard quickly said, you don't have to give me a 20% discount. Full price. Full price is fine. Yu Wanwan, since when did I become a fortune teller? Is it okay? The little bodyguard asked eagerly. Yu Wanwan was somewhat speechless. It seemed like all those times she played make-believe were too believable, all these people actually believed she could read fortunes. In her situation, she was able to read people's fortunes more accurately than fortune tellers. But the problem was that she didn't know just any random person's future. For instance, this person in front of her. Looking at this very unfamiliar face, there was nothing about this person that came to her mind, so Yu Wanwan could only reply perfunctorily, I have rules and will only read fortunes of people who were brought to me by fate. As for what counted as fate, that wasn't for her to say. The little bodyguard could only leave with a face of disappointment after hearing what she said. At this moment, a chuckle came through the door. Miss Wanwan, could you read my fortune please? She wasn't sure when Sui arrived, but he walked through the door. When Yu Wanwan saw the visitor, she raised her brows. Sui? Yu Wanwan laughed. Housekeeper Su, don't tease me. I was just joking around with them. How could I read fortunes? That's too crazy. If I really knew how to read fortunes, why would I be in this state, huh? But the truth was that as Si Yi Han's right-hand man and one of the closest people to him, she knew everything about his fate. At this moment, Yu Wanwan's expression became overcast all of a sudden. Lately, she had been worrying about Si Yi Han's condition, so she hadn't paid attention to Su Yi. Now that Su Yi brought it up, she remembered that what happened to Su Yi was quite tragic. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Anne. If she remembered correctly, Su Yi's tragedy was closely linked to the attack on Si Yi Han. In her previous life, after the huge incident of Si Yi Han being attacked, the Si family naturally wanted to conduct a thorough investigation to find the main culprit. This investigation pointed them to their own people, it was a traitor within the company. And this traitor was Si Yihan's most competent and trusted assistant, Su Yi. Due to Su Yi's position and influence, everyone in the Si family was shocked. During that time, Si Yihan was still unconscious, so the old madam, the senior managers of the company and the elders in the family were the ones who dealt with this. Many higher-ups in the senior management did a joint investigation and finally determined that the evidence was undeniable. Their equipment was robbed, the entire team of bodyguards and secret agents were injured and there were innumerable casualties. Furthermore, Si Yihan was still in a coma at the time. With such severe accusations on Su Yi, the extreme punishment dealt by the Si family was to be expected. At that time, Su Yi tried his best to explain and begged for a second chance, denying all the accusations. With the irrefutable evidence, no one believed him or stood by his side. In the end, Su Yi was isolated and was offered no help at all. His entire family was exterminated and he was the only one lucky enough to escape. But to Su Yi, being alive was more painful than death. He had to bear the label of a traitor forever and the pain of losing his family. He had to live the remaining years of his life in anguish and torture. Yi Wanwan remembered that when Si Yihan found him, Su Yi's right leg was disabled. He covered himself in rags and was lying under the overpass, deranged and delirious. Although Si Yihan found the real culprit after he awoke, this was meaningless to Su Yi. Subsequently, Si Yihan brought Su Yi home and sent someone to care for and treat him, but not long after, Su Yi disappeared one night during a heavy storm and didn't reappear. People weren't sure whether he was dead or alive. Since that incident, Si Yihan kept everybody at a distance. Mentioning Su Yi's name was taboo, nobody ever dared to bring him up. Therefore, Su Yi's fate in her previous life was pretty tragic, not just ordinarily tragic. In her previous life, Su Yi was responsible for every matter of hers. Back then, she caused trouble every day and nitpicked at every single thing. It was always Su Yi who had to clean up her mess. Although Su Yi had his guard up around her, he was always responsible and dutiful. He even helped her cover up countless troublesome incidents and tried his best to resolve conflicts and misunderstandings between Si Yihan and her. When Su Yi left, her life in the Si family became even more difficult. And in this life, Su Yi had helped her lots too. If it was possible, she hoped Su Yi would not meet such a tragic ending. Miss Wanwan. Miss Wanwan. Su Yi's voice suddenly resounded in her ear, making Yi Wanwan, who was immersed in her memories, jump and return to her senses. What? Lu Ying and Song Jing's injuries have already been treated. We're ready to leave, Su Yi said. Oh, alright, Yi Wanwan nodded then subconsciously furrowed her brows. Although Su Yi met such a tragic ending in her previous life, she had already drastically altered the course of events in this life, so according to the butterfly effect, there was a high chance that Su Yi's fate would change too, right? Maybe in this life, things wouldn't turn out that way. Hopefully, she was just worrying irrationally. Otherwise, under this situation when Si Yihan was still unconscious, Su Yi's situation would really be terrible. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si family's old residence. The old madam was having an urgent meeting with Qin Ruoshi, the senior managers of the company and a group of family elders to discuss a rescue plan when they heard a pair of urgent footsteps coming towards the door. Following that, the door of the study was pushed open and the servant was extremely emotional as he panted, old madam, back. Ninth master and the others are back. The old madam went blank for a moment, then her face filled with joy. What did you say? Little Ninth is back. Qin Ruoshi instantly stood up as well. Where are they now? They're already at the door. The old madam struggled to get up. Quick! Quick, bring me over. The housekeeper immediately helped the old madam up and together they walked briskly towards the main gate. Before, when the old madam heard the bad news, she couldn't even stand properly, but now she was able to run like she was flying, eager to see her grandson immediately. Indeed, there were a few cars parked at the gate. Su Yi, Lu Ying, and the others came out of the car, one after another. After them, Si Han was slowly and carefully carried out of the car by a few men. Yi Wanwan got out of the car and followed closely. Seeing Si Han being carried out of the car, the old madam's excitement turned to panic. Little Ninth is injured. Su Yi quickly placated her. Ninth Master's not injured, old madam, don't worry. It's just that he overexerted himself, so he fainted. I will need old madam's help to call Dr. Sun over as soon as possible to take a look at Ninth Master. The old madam had numerous questions on her mind, but at this moment, all her attention was trained on her grandson. She swiftly got the old housekeeper to call Sun Bai Chao and allowed everyone to carefully carry Si Han inside. In just a brief moment, Si Han was surrounded by the old madam, Qin Ruoxi, a group of elders and servants. Yi Wanwan was squeezed out of the group and could only follow far behind them. In the bedroom, after confirming that her grandson was unconscious due to overexertion and hadn't sustained any injuries, the old madam's heart finally calmed down a little. But seeing her grandson's pale and weak complexion and his extreme fatigue that made him unconscious, her eyes turned red as she trembled and held onto her grandson's fingers tightly. After she collected herself, the old madam turned to Su Yi and the others with a serious expression. What happened exactly? How were you able to escape? Su Yi immediately recounted what happened to the old madam. Everyone present weighed each word as he spoke. On the third day when we were en route to Country B and were getting ready to continue on our journey, Ninth Master's body couldn't take it any longer and he fainted all of a sudden. Not long after that, the bodyguards got the news that Country B was controlled by an outside power. They investigated and confirmed that the power was actually the murderous blood gang. At the time, our connections with the outside world were cut off completely, so we could be slaughtered by anybody. Old madam, one thing you should be clear on is that even if we doubled or tripled the number of men we brought along, we couldn't take on the murderous blood gang. In a situation like this, I could only allocate a small team to escort Miss Wanwan to safety. The other party's target was obviously the C family, so they wouldn't care if an unimportant person was missing. Worried that the old madam would blame Su Yi, 11 chimed in. Under those circumstances, we wouldn't be able to change the outcome even if we stayed, so Special Assistant Sui got us to protect Miss Wanwan and leave. The old madam could not blame Su Yi for the way he handled the situation. Su Yi knows Little Ninth best. If Little Ninth was awake then, he would definitely have done the same. Even though this was what the old madam said, she still frowned slightly, a tinge of disappointment in her eyes. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After listening to the reports of Su Yi and the others, all the elders from the C Corporation turned solemn. How many people are eyeing this position of the mistress of the household? Initially, when Si Han didn't have a woman by his side, everyone lived together in harmony. Who knew that Si Han would bring a stranger into the old residence to meet the old madam all of a sudden, breaking the superficial peace they had? As they were intimidated by Si Han's power, everyone remained silent about this, but it didn't mean they didn't have any opinions. This kind of discontentment would only gradually intensify over time. One of the elders sitting on the sofa with a purple teapot in his hand said languidly, "That lady is an outsider. After all, she really didn't have to be dragged into the C family's disputes." Special Assistant Su's actions were right. There was no problem at all. I agree with what he said. The elder turned to look plainly at Yi Wanwan who was standing in the corner. Since this is the case, now our family has to have internal discussions with classified information, so I request for this lady to be excused. Yi Wanwan discreetly glanced at the person speaking. Each individual in the C family's internal department was part of a direct line of descendants. The competition between subdivisions was very strong and was divided into many denominations. The person speaking had close relations with the Qin family and was one of Qin Ruoxi's important supporters. In the beginning, the woman with the highest potential to be the mistress of the household was Qin Ruoxi. In order to butter up the Qin family, these people invested in many bargaining chips, had entangled relationships and inextricably linked interests with the C family. Now that this outsider had suddenly taken up this position, how could they sit back and do nothing? Furthermore, these people were very good at reading body language. Once they saw that the old madam was slightly unsatisfied with her, they grabbed hold of this perfect opportunity to get rid of her. With just a few words, she was publicly denied her rightful place. As expected, although the old madam frowned, she didn't say anything. No big deal. Yuanwan had been fearful and on edge these past few days, so she couldn't wait to get some rest. Who cared about the lengthy talks of these people here? But Yuanwan glanced at Su Yi. In her previous life, the real traitor tried to cover up for himself, so the moment Si Han and the others returned, they immediately made a move on Su Yi and accused him of being the spy, making him a scapegoat. She had a feeling that even though she changed the course of events by interfering, the Si family still had to thoroughly investigate to find the main culprit for this incident. After the plans of the mastermind failed, there was a high chance they would find someone to take the fall for their crimes. So, what happened next could very well be the same as in her previous life. Seeing that Yuanwan was still standing there unmoving with a brazen expression, the elder's eyes turned icy. "Excuse me, miss, do you have something to say? If not, please leave." At this moment, Qin Ruoshi came to Yuanwan's rescue. "Uncle Feng, Miss Yi is Ajio's girlfriend and also the future mistress of the household. She's not considered an outsider." The moment Qin Ruoshi said that, a piercing sneer came from the door. "TSK, mistress of the household? What a joke. How is she even qualified?" The elders turned to the girl. "Qin Yu, why are you here?" "Dad, I'm here to accompany Grandma. Just now, I heard you all saying that ninth brother was in danger, yet this shameless woman abandoned him and the others and ran away by herself." Feng Qin Yu said indignantly. "Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." When Su Yi heard this, he furrowed his brows. Without any regard for his manners anymore, he interrupted Feng Qin Yu and explained, "Miss Feng, I haven't finished what I was saying just now. It's not what you think." Before Su Yi could finish, Feng Qin Yu berated him sharply. "Who on earth are you?" "I'm speaking to my father. Who are you to interrupt? You couldn't even protect your master. What's the point of having a useless piece of garbage like you in the Si family?" Su Yi's face turned red from the scolding and his fists were clenched tightly. Even 11, who was about to speak, felt awkward. Feng Qin Yu looked condescendingly at Yuanwan with contempt in her eyes. Since she's the one ninth brother chose to be the mistress of the household, she should have stuck with the team in a situation like this. Even if they were faced with death, she shouldn't be the only one getting out alive. This cowardly woman who neglected ninth brother and the others, caring only for her own life, how could she take up the position of being the mistress of the household? According to the Si family's rules, deserting your family is enough reason to be thrashed to death by rods and fed to the dogs. Simply chasing Yuanwan away would be too lenient a punishment for her. The other elders felt completely apathetic when they looked at Yuanwan and all agreed. Qin Yu's right. Elder Feng merely asked her to leave, that's already saving face for her. No matter what her status was before, from the moment she abandoned the family, she no longer has anything to do with the Si family anymore. Since she thinks she isn't an outsider and insists on keeping this title, let's fulfill her wishes and treat her according to the family rules. Seeing as Yuanwan hadn't spoken a word, Feng Qin Yu slowly made her way towards her and scoffed lightly. "Tisk, why haven't you spoken once we mentioned the family rules, huh? Don't you want the title of mistress of the household? You don't want it anymore now? Let me warn you, I've seen plenty of women like you, people who would go through dirty means for the sake of money and power. You still dream of becoming the mistress of the household? I find you abhorrent even as a play-tui for ninth brother." Watching this socialite suddenly launching an attack on her, Yuanwan looked at her with complete indifference as all the memories from the past surfaced. "Feng Qin Yu, we meet again." The expression in Yuanwan's eyes changed very quickly. First, she gave Su Yi and 11 a meaningful glance to hold their horses. After that, She looked casually at Feng Qinyu. Miss Feng, may I ask you a question? Feng Qinyu looked at her calmly. Sure, go ahead. I want to see what kind of tricks she has up her sleeves at a moment like this. According to what Miss Feng said just now, you already acknowledged my status as the future mistress of the household, right? Yi Wanwan asked. Feng Qinyu crossed her arms with a face of mockery and disdain. Ninth brother and grandma already acknowledged it, so how could I not? This dumb woman, she's still hoarding this status at this point. When Yi Wanwan heard that, she nodded and turned to Su Yi. Housekeeper Su, are there any rules in the family on how to punish someone who offends his or her superiors and is disrespectful towards the mistress of the household? Su Yi replied instinctively, according to the family rules, one who is disrespectful to the mistress of the household should be severely punished. The moment Su Yi's words landed, a loud slap resounded. Yi Wanwan gave Feng Qinyu a tight slap right in front of everyone's dumbstruck gazes. Feng Qinyu was in a complete daze. She stood there holding her face blankly and the others were tongue-tied and stunned. Even the old madam who had been observing indifferently at the side gave a look of surprise. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Yi Wanwan slowly retracted her hand and said very casually and calmly, no need for severe punishment, let this slap be a lesson for Miss Feng. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You hit me, you actually dared to hit me. Just a lowly and vile play-tui like you actually dared to act with the power of the mistress of the household and dared to teach me a lesson? Feng Qinyu was so mad that her face turned the color of a pig's liver. She raised her hand and was about to slap Yi Wanwan brutally. Bitch! The next second, Su Yi and 11 took a step forward at the same time like two boulders, blocking off access to Yi Wanwan. 11, Miss Feng. You can't be disrespectful towards Miss Wanwan. Su Yi, Miss Feng, please be mindful of your words and actions. Feng Qinyu glared at the two of them in a fiery rage. Great, really great, two truly loyal and devoted dogs. Are you guys completely smitten by this vixen that you've forgotten who your master is? Both of you are actually shielding a cowardly and ungrateful slut. A murderous intention in 11's eyes flashed as he spoke without a trace of warmth. Miss Feng, Miss Wanwan certainly did not choose to die with us, but she saved all of our lives. Feng Qinyu was stunned before she let out a laugh. Saved everyone's lives? This woman? In order to protect this vixen, you guys could come up with any kind of nonsense, huh? How dare you speak without thinking in front of Grandma, in front of all of us? Qinyu, keep quiet. The old madam shot a stern look at Feng Qinyu, then turned to 11 and asked, what you just said now, was that the truth? Faced with the old madam's and all the elders' questioning gazes, 11's expression was unperturbed as he said, I would never dare to lie. If it wasn't for Miss Wanwan, I'm afraid we would all be corpses now, including Master. Miss Wanwan was quick-witted, her courage and insight were even more admirable. She was simply pretending to leave with us at that time, but after that, she came up with the idea of disguising us as another power that the murderous blood gang was extremely fearful of. She went forward and scared off every single one of them so we could escape. Miss Feng went overboard by insulting and speaking so rudely to Miss Wanwan just now. Although this retelling of events was very short, only people like them who had personally experienced it could understand how dangerous it was. If they were just a little more careless, they would have no hope of surviving. Su Yi, who was next to him, continued, at that point, our people were already up against the murderous blood gang, and Lu Ying and Song Jing were severely injured. It was Miss Wanwan who led Dark Team 1 to us in time. In the beginning, we all misunderstood Miss Wanwan as well. We only found out the truth when we were safely out of harm's way and 11 and the others revealed their faces. After 11 and Su Yi finished speaking, the entire room entered a weird silence. Everyone returned their senses after a long time. The elders present turned to look at each other, surprised. Are you sure? It was that brat who saved all of you in the end? How could it be? I thought a powerful force came to help. The old madam turned to the only person who hadn't spoken, Lu Ying. She asked him solemnly, Lu Ying, were Su Yi and 11 telling the truth? Lu Ying pursed his lips. Although there were many things he wasn't happy with Yi Wanwan about, he couldn't possibly lie to this kind of question. So in the end, he lowered his head and answered truthfully, yes, it's true, old madam. Indeed, Miss Wanwan's plan saved us all. Hearing what Lu Ying said, Qin Ruoxi's eyes shifted subtly. How is that possible? At this moment, Feng Qinyu had a complete change in expression. It was actually this witch, who only knows how to show off her charm, who saved ninth brother and the others. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Feng Qinyu gritted her teeth as she murmured resentfully, how is she that quick-witted and resourceful? She probably played some small tricks. Anyone would know how to do that. Hearing what Feng Qinyu said, 11's eyes were filled with ridicule. Simply played some small tricks. All these high and mighty ladies kept in boudoirs are truly naive to the point that they're stupid. Now, the way the old madam looked at Yi Wanwan was much warmer than before. She also looked at her in a new light for the slap she gave Feng Qinyu with the authority of the mistress of the household. Wanwan, you're only little 9th's girlfriend after all and haven't married into our family yet, so the C family doesn't have the right to demand anything from you. However, you stayed back with little ninth and even thought of a plan to save everyone. This makes Grandma really glad. Originally, after they returned this time, Yi Wanwan found that the old madam's attitude towards her had turned colder. She didn't have to think much to know that someone had definitely said something to Grandma. But Yi Wanwan didn't mind this at all. Even if it was the case, it didn't matter much. After all, she met Grandma with all that honor and glory in her past life and Grandma still accepted her. As long as she didn't cause trouble like she did in her past life or break the old madam's taboos, her so-called dark history would not cause any real damage for her. Yi Wanwan revealed a hint of shyness as she replied obediently, Grandma, I didn't do much. I just moved my lips. It was all thanks to everyone working together and helping out that we solved this crisis. Seeing as Yi Wanwan didn't openly take credit, the old madam nodded. Alright, you don't have to be humble. You did very well this time, Grandma will remember this. Now, all the elders finally had nothing to say. One of them who had a white beard and seemed to be the oldest in the family clan glanced at Yi Wanwan coldly then said indifferently, since this is the case, this problem ends here then. What's important right now is that we find out who the mastermind is behind all this. The C family doesn't have any ties, much less any feud, with such a notorious organization like the murderous blood gang, so why would they target the C family? Those outlaws were definitely hired by someone. An elder in a green shirt sitting in the corner scowled and echoed, that's right, they actually dared to act against the master of the C family. It's simply outrageous. We must seize that person by hook or crook. But, right now, we have no leads at all. Where should we start to investigate? Someone asked with knitted brows. Listening up to this point, the old madam's expression turned rigid. She looked towards Su Yi and the others and probed, when all of you were up against those guys, did you get any useful information? When Su Yi heard this, he recalled what happened and replied, when we were confronted by those people from the murderous blood gang, I did give them a warning, I asked whether they had considered the consequences of their actions. If they really killed Ninth Master, they would have to face the fury of the entire C family. Even the murderous blood gang couldn't possibly be completely fearless of the C family, but they were very arrogant. It seemed like they were emboldened by the backing they had and it was definitely a little fishy. At this moment, a cold light abruptly appeared in the white-bearded elder's eyes. They were emboldened by the backing they had? Why would they have a backing? Could we surmise that the mastermind behind all this is someone from the C family who has a high position and right of inheritance? You think this was a vain attempt to murder the master and replace him? So that's why the murderous blood gang didn't have any fear of retaliation from the C family. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. A vain attempt to assassinate the master to replace him. This isn't just an ordinary offense. The white-bearded elder's words resonated throughout the entire room. Everyone kept silent in fear. The white-bearded elder was Si Yi-han's grandfather's second younger brother, Si Ming-rong. In other words, he was Si Yi-han's second great-uncle. He held the highest position and prestige in the clan. Even the old madam would discuss many issues with him and listen to his opinions. In the family, he was equivalent to a law enforcer and had been faithful and true towards the Si family all these years. He did his best to support the master of the household and was never afraid of offending anyone. The moment Si Ming-rong said those words, almost everyone turned towards the elder dressed in a western suit, sitting in the corner and sipping his tea leisurely. The elder in a western suit seemed to be around 60 years old. Seeing that everyone was staring at him, his face turned slightly dark. Cough, Uncle Rong, how could you put it that way? This person was Si Yi-han's father's cousin, Si Huai-liang, third great-uncle's son. Previously, when Si Yi-han's father, Si Huai-zhang, passed away, Si Yi-han and a few of the uncles fought like demons. Until Si Yi-han seized the position of head of the Si family many years later, those people kept eyeing that seat. Especially Si Huai-liang. He loved pulling strings and forming cliques. He caused a scene several times when he was drunk, displaying his dissatisfaction towards Si Yi-han and criticizing him for usurping the position when he was just a newbie. He even threatened to find someone to kill him. Hence, it was no wonder that everyone's first instinct was to blame him. The white-bearded elder swept a stern gaze at Si Huai-liang. It was just a guess. Why are you so paranoid? Unless you're the one who sent those people. Si Huai-liang immediately became agitated. Uncle Rong. You can't speak your mind like that. I think it's a little hurtful that we get suspicious of our own family members just by relying on these people's words without any evidence. Don't you all agree? When the others heard that, they also spoke up one after another. Uncle Rong's suspicions aren't without reason, but this is such a serious accusation. Of course, we need to investigate thoroughly and find substantial proof. That's right, the master of our family is now seriously ill and in a coma. We're without a leader. We can't have disorder amongst our own people. The white-bearded elder exclaimed harshly, of course we'll investigate. And we must start from our own people. As long as none of you have done anything wrong, what disorder will there be? The old madam took a deep breath and opened her eyes. When she considered how her grandson nearly lost his life, her eyes scanned every single one of them icily. All of a sudden, she said, Uncle Zhong is right. Since we don't have any evidence, we'll investigate till we do. We'll start internally. Everyone must cooperate with the investigation, otherwise, you'll be treated as the traitor. I've already warned all of you umpteen times, internal strife is strictly prohibited. No attacking each other. If I find that anyone dared to violate this, you will not be let off lightly. Si Huai-liang curled his lips and didn't dare to object. He said, yes, great aunt, I will definitely cooperate. But I just want to make this small declaration, great aunt, you know me best. I have a sharp tongue, but I mean well. Although I made some poorly thought out comments before, I would never, ever do something like this to Ajio. I hope you'll have a thorough investigation. The old madam gave him a sidelong glance. As long as you didn't do it, you won't be wrongly accused. Once the old madam finished speaking, she turned to the old housekeeper and ordered, pass on my order. Within 3 days. The old madam was about to give her orders when an elder sitting at the corner in a navy blue tang suit lit up and exclaimed all of a sudden, hold it. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Everyone turned in unison towards the elder who interrupted the old madam. The moment Yuan, who had been watching on the sidelines, saw the elder dressed in a tang suit speak up, the space between her brows twitched. What is it? The old madam frowned. The elder dressed in the tang suit made a subtle, cold glance in Su Yi's direction, then said to the old madam, "Sister-in-law, I received some information lately, but since I haven't looked into and verified it, I didn't want to mention it. But now that our master has been attacked, I added 2 and 2 together, and to my surprise, something wasn't right. This is a serious case, and I personally am unable to judge, so I hope sister-in-law and everyone here will take a look into this matter together." Watching this scene in front of her, Yu Wanwan's expression changed. It was exactly the same as she had expected. Things were unfolding just the way they had in the past. The person speaking was the true mastermind, Si Yihan's fourth great-uncle, Si Mingli. Si Yihan's grandfather had 3 younger brothers, the white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, Si Mingxiao, who had already passed away, and this mastermind, Si Mingli. Si Mingli occupied a high position and was powerful. His status was comparable to Si Mingrong. Considering Yu Wanwan's current abilities, even though she knew this would happen, she was unable to stop it. Furthermore, Si Mingli still had an extremely powerful backer, and Yu Wanwan still didn't know who that person was to this day. In her previous life, not only did the Si family find out about Si Mingli, but they also found out that Si Mingli had been colluding with a mysterious person all these years. It was a pity that when Yu Wanwan got a divorce and left the Si family, the greatest masterminds still hadn't been brought to light. In order to find the culprit, even the seriously ill old madam encountered violent treachery. Watching Su Yi, who still had no clue about what was about to happen and who was sincerely hoping to nab the culprit for his master, Yu Wanwan clenched her fists tightly as she thought about his tragic end in her past life. Shortly after, the brown portfolio Si Mingli brought out made its way to the old madam and all the elders. After looking at it, everyone's faces turned unusually dark. The white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, had his face completely shrouded in darkness. After he placed the thick stack of documents down, he shot daggers at Su Yi, who was standing in the corner, and bellowed, "Su Yi." Su Yi noticed the strange looks from the elders and furrowed his brows slightly, then he took a step forward. "Here." Si Mingrong slammed the table with a loud bang. "Su Yi. How dare you? The Si family has never let you down, yet you betrayed us, conspiring with the murderous blood gang to assassinate our master." "What? Betray master, conspired with the murderous blood gang?" Su Yi was in utter shock. After some time, he hastily said, "Please check your facts carefully, Elder Rong. How could I possibly betray the Si family and assassinate our master? It's impossible that I could even have any connections with the murderous blood gang." "Humph, you won't give up until you see the coffin, huh?" Si Mingrong tossed the documents at Su Yi's face. "You actually said you have no connections with the murderous blood gang? Then how do you explain all this?" Yu Wanwan followed Su Yi's gaze, and certainly, she saw those were pieces of evidence of Su Yi secretly colluding with the members of the murderous blood gang. The evidence was irrefutable. The trickiest part was that all these pieces of evidence weren't forged, they were all real. Su Yi did, in fact, communicate with members of the murderous blood gang. This point was undeniable. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Mingli was very sure that this evidence alone was enough to condemn Su Yi. As long as Su Yi dragged things out and the truth came to light, they would be off the hook. Su Yi had been the most trusted person at Si Yihan's side. There were many things Si Yihan entrusted to him to deal with. If it wasn't for Su Yi sharing Si Yihan's burden all these years, Si Yihan's health would have been much worse. As a matter of fact, that member of the murderous blood gang whom Su Yi contacted before wasn't someone from the gang at all. It was a mole Su Yi secretly planted inside the murderous blood gang, who was actually one of their own people. But before they could get any useful information, that person died in an accident during one of their missions. Who knew that the real mastermind would collect all the evidence of Su Yi contacting that mole, use him as a scapegoat, and accuse him of colluding with someone from the murderous blood gang? Now that the mole was dead, he couldn't possibly testify for Su Yi. Due to those people who brought out this incident at such a sensitive time, Su-yi would never be able to explain himself even if he had 10 mouths. As expected, after seeing all the evidence, Su-yi's expression changed. These are... Si Ming-rong glared at him. You dare to say all this isn't real? You didn't secretly contact that person? I already checked all the evidence over and over, they definitely weren't fabricated, Si Mingli said confidently. Su-yi's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. He felt as if he was wrapped in a giant net. Su-yi forced himself to maintain his composure before speaking up. All this evidence is real. I did contact this person before, but I only contacted him because he was a mole I planted in the murderous blood gang. He's one of us, and the reason why I was in contact with him was to gather intelligence. Si Mingli sneered. TSK, a mole? One of our own. Then where's the intel you gathered, huh? Why didn't you receive any news about our master's attempted assassination this time? Su-yi immediately responded, that mole died a month ago. Si Mingli nodded in understanding. So you're saying we can only rely on your words since the dead can't testify, right? Su-yi replied anxiously, aye. But everything I said was the truth. Si Mingli let out a low chuckle. I see. Then let me ask you, this project was kept completely under wraps. Aside from our internal people, outsiders all thought the master went for an ordinary business trip, so this time, why did the murderous blood gang choose this precise moment to act? The murderous blood gang was able to seal off the entire country B, meaning they had been preparing this for at least a month. This means they already found out about the master's plans a month ago, yet coincidentally, the last time you contacted that person from the murderous blood gang was also a month ago. The project this time was indeed kept under wraps, but it took 3 entire years to prepare for it and it went through several hands. There were many opportunities for something to go wrong. Then let me ask you again, when the master was surrounded by the murderous blood gang, our men split in 3 directions to escape, so how was the murderous blood gang able to locate our master instantly? At that time, Country B was completely under the control of the murderous blood gang, so splitting our men in 3 directions was our last resort. Regardless of the number of splits we had, our actions were all under the nose of the murderous blood gang. The reason why they didn't kill us immediately was simply because they were toying with us like a game of cat and mouse. Si Mingli scoffed. Fantastic, fantastic. What a perfect excuse. You contacted a member of the murderous blood gang because he was a mole and you couldn't get the person to testify because he's dead. You said the leaking of the itinerary had nothing to do with you and the reason why the escape route was in their hands was because the murderous blood gang had arms and eyes all over the country. Special Assistant Sue's really scheming, what good moves. No wonder he was able to deceive the master, old madam and all of us all these years. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After he said his piece, Si Mingli snapped. He raised the teacup next to him and tossed it at Su-yi. An ear-piercing clang resounded. The teacup fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Su-yi's forehead was bleeding non-stop. Lu-ying and 11 stood there in a daze looking at the evidence, completely dumbfounded. The previous 2 accusations were indeed questionable, but Su-yi secretly contacting the murderous blood gang was an irrefutable fact. Su-yi, how is this possible? At this moment, all the elders gave Su-yi cold and detached looks. Su-yi, with all this conclusive evidence here, how are you still trying to smooth-talk your way out of this? The mole who died was obviously killed by you to silence him. Why did you betray the C family and who's your master behind the scenes? What's your motive? You're truly ungrateful. If it wasn't for the late master, your entire family would have already been killed by your enemies and buried in the deep sea. You actually dared to bite the hand that fed you. You're worse than a beast. I think the entire Su family has been bribed. The blood on Su-yi's head trickled along his brow bone and dripped into his eyes like tears of blood. Facing each and every one of their cold faces and dagger-like glares, he slowly lifted his blood-red eyes and said, making sure to enunciate every single word, "I did not betray my master. Every single word I said just now was the truth. My father was with the late master his whole life, and I've been by the master's side since I was little. The entire Su family is completely loyal to master. Today, if I, Su Yi, spoke a single lie, I'll go to hell, degenerate into an animal and be barred from reincarnating." Si Mingli scoffed. "If one could prove his innocence just by swearing, I'm afraid there wouldn't be any criminals in this world." Si Mingrong's face was frozen as he pondered for a long time. "Let's not talk about the other issues. This evidence is indeed irrefutable. Do you have anything to prove that this person you contacted in secret was a mole like you mentioned?" "Only the mole himself can prove my innocence, and now that the mole's dead, there's nothing I can do. Seems like our investigation ends here." Si Mingli turned to the old madam. "Sister-in-law, things are very clear now, so please deal out a punishment for this traitor." The old madam, who had kept silent all this time, looked unusually somber and had been sizing Su Yi up several times. The corners of Si Mingli's lip curved upwards, revealing a bone-chilling smile. This time, Su Yi was doomed for sure. Not just Su Yi alone, but the entire Su family would be dragged into this. "Old madam." At this moment, an elderly man in his 60s dressed in black pushed the door open and entered. He looked anxiously towards the silent old madam. Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to focus on that man. This elderly man's name was Su Changkuan. He was Su Yi's father and had fought for the Si family for 30 full years. Today, he was also one of the oldest in the Si family. "My son, Su Yi, would never do something devoid of conscience like colluding with the enemy. I hope old madam will stand for justice." Su Changkuan's body trembled slightly. As one of the oldest in the Si family, he knew that if Su Yi was proven guilty, there was no doubt he would die. Even if the master of the Si family, Si Yihan, regained consciousness right now, it would all be hopeless if there was no evidence to prove Su Yi's innocence. The old madam shut her eyes slightly. Her face was glacial and she didn't bother responding to Su Changkuan. After all, he was Su Yi's father, so obviously he would speak up for him. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.